I used to think warnings like, "Don't open the door after midnight," were just urban legends, stories you hear to scare kids or entertain late-night YouTube creepers. But what happened to me in that apartment was real. It wasn't a ghost story. It wasn't a prank. It was something else, something intelligent, patient, and cruel. It started when I moved into a cheap, one-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. I'd just gotten out of a messy breakup and needed somewhere quiet, somewhere to start over. The place was small, a little too dark for my taste, and oddly quiet. But the rent was low, and I was tired of couch surfing. The landlord was an older man named Mr. Halley. Grey beard, calm voice, the type that talked in short sentences and never smiled. When I signed the lease, he paused and looked me dead in the eye. His voice dropped lower than usual. He said, "If someone knocks on your door between midnight and 3 a.m., don't answer. Don't speak. Don't even look through the peephole. Just wait, and whatever you do, do not open it." At night, the apartment's silence was suffocating. The quiet was so profound, it became its own presence, wrapping around me like a heavy shroud. The only sounds were the occasional creak of floorboards, as if the apartment itself was shifting uneasily in its sleep. Sometimes I'd hear the faint whisper of wind slipping through the cracks, a soft, eerie sigh that seemed to echo through the walls. Shadows from the streetlights outside danced across the walls, stretching and twisting like dark, spectral fingers reaching out to touch me. The air felt thick with an unshakable tension, as though it held secrets I was not meant to uncover. There were nights when I'd lie awake in bed, feeling the weight of unseen eyes upon me, a prickling sensation at the back of my neck that refused to fade. It was as if the apartment watched me with an intelligence of its own, keeping vigil over my every move. I couldn't shake the feeling that something lurked just out of sight, waiting in the dark corners where the light dared not tread. It felt like a warning, and yet an invitation, daring me to break the silence and see what horrors awaited beyond the door. I thought he was kidding. The absurdity of his words caught me off guard, and I chuckled, waiting for the punchline that never came. But his eyes held a seriousness that sent a chill down my spine. As he handed me the keys and turned away, a knot of unease settled in my stomach. Why would he leave me with such cryptic finality? My mind raced with a mix of dread and curiosity. The first few nights passed in a haze of mundane sounds, the low hum of the fridge, the sporadic groans of the old pipes, and the relentless chatter of my own thoughts. Each noise seemed amplified in the silence, like an orchestra of solitude. I unpacked my belongings slowly, each item a small step toward claiming this unfamiliar space as my own. The quiet was unsettling at first, but gradually it lulled me into a sense of security, allowing me to sleep more soundly than I had in months. However, the peace was fragile, easily shattered. On the fifth night, just as I drifted into the depths of sleep, it happened. At precisely 2:14 a.m., there it was, 3 soft knocks. My heart lurched in my chest, pounding like a frantic drum. I lay frozen, my mind a whirlwind of fear and confusion. Was it real? Had I imagined it? The darkness seemed to close in around me, thick with the weight of the unknown. I strained my ears, trying to pierce the silence for any hint of movement. The air felt charged with an electric tension. Each breath I took sounded like a thunderclap in the oppressive quiet. My thoughts spiraled. Was someone there? Should I get up? My brain screamed at me to move, to investigate, but my body refused to obey, paralyzed by a fear I couldn't quite explain. The room seemed to shift, shadows playing tricks on my eyes, blurring the line between reality and imagination. I could feel the cold sweat on my skin and the rapid thud of my heart echoing in my ears. Every fiber of my being urged caution, yet a small flicker of curiosity burned alongside the fear. What was out there? What did those knocks mean? The questions swirled in my mind, unanswered and gnawing at the edges of my sanity. Not aggressive, not random. 3 calm, evenly spaced knocks, like someone who knew exactly where they were and what they were doing. I froze. My body tensed before my brain even processed it. I waited, barely breathing. After a minute or two, I tiptoed to the door and looked through the peephole. There was no one there, just the hallway, dim, still and empty. I told myself it was nothing. Thin walls, maybe someone knocking upstairs or across the hall. I climbed back into bed and forced myself to sleep, but the next night it happened again. Same time, same 3 knocks. This time, I didn't go to the door. I stayed in bed facing the wall, heart pounding. But the 3rd time, that's when everything changed, because on the 3rd night, when I heard the knock, I also heard a whisper from the other side of the door in my own voice. Let me in. I sat up in bed as if some unseen force had yanked me upright. My heart thudded in my chest, a primal warning. That voice, my voice, it wasn't just similar, it was exact. Same tone, same rhythm, like someone had recorded me and was playing it back through the door. The room was dim, shadows creeping in from the corners as the lights began to flicker, casting erratic shapes that danced across the walls. A chill swept over me, the kind that sinks into your bones as if the temperature had plummeted in an instant. I stared at the doorframe for what felt like an eternity, listening to the silence stretch, taut and suffocating between the walls. I was afraid to move or even blink, fearing it would provoke whatever was out there. A distant hum, low and unsettling, seemed to vibrate through the air, adding to the oppressive atmosphere. My mind played tricks on me. The door appeared to shimmer, slightly, as if reality itself was glitching, struggling to hold its form. But nothing came after that. No more whispers, just the cold, relentless silence pressing in from every side. I didn't sleep that night, and I didn't dare go near the door until the sun finally broke through the horizon, its rays chasing away the darkness and whatever else lurked within it. The next day, I tried to rationalize it. Sleep paralysis? A dream that felt real? But my voice wasn't in my head. It had come from the hallway. I could still feel the vibrations in the wood. That night I stayed up, lights on, phone in hand, camera ready. I wasn't going to be caught off guard again. But the clock. Past 2:14 a.m. without a sound, no knocks, no whisper. I started to think maybe whatever it was had passed. Then came the 4th night, 14 a.m. 3 knocks, louder this time, deliberate. I walked to the door slowly, filming the hallway through the peephole with my phone's camera. Still, no one there. But this time, I heard breathing, shallow, wet, like something just on the other side exhaling through its teeth. I held my phone up, zoomed in on the screen, and paused. There was something off. The shadow under the door wasn't mine. It was reversed. The light from my apartment was casting the wrong way. It was as if the hallway had a light source that didn't exist. And then the whisper returned. It's me. Same voice. My voice. But broken, slightly distorted, like it was glitching or learning. I didn't sleep that night either. On the 5th night, I left my phone recording by the door and sat in bed, earbuds in, music blasting, pretending that whatever was knocking out there didn't exist. But in the morning I checked the recording. No knocks, no voices, just static, white noise, until the end. At the very last second, just before the footage cut, there was a frame, a still image of someone standing outside my door. It was me. Same hoodie, same posture, same face. Except the eyes were wrong. They were black, hollow, like something was wearing my skin but didn't know how to blink. The 6th night, I didn't prepare. I didn't record anything. I didn't turn the lights on or sit by the door. I just stood there, waiting, I was past fear now. I felt like I was being hunted, stalked not by a person but by something that had studied me, copied me, and every knock, every whisper was its way of testing the boundary between my world and wherever it came from. At 2:14 a.m., right on cue, 3 knocks. But this time, it didn't wait. There were more, faster, louder, angry, bang, 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 and then the voice, again mine, this time clearer, almost mocking. "You left the door unlocked tonight." My heart dropped. I had double-checked the lock earlier, I always did. I ran to the door and looked through the peephole. Nothing, but I didn't trust it anymore. I backed away slowly. Then I heard it again, not outside, inside. The same. 3 knocks, this time on the inside of the hallway closet. I turned slowly. The door was moving, trembling, like something was pressing against it from inside. The air in the room went still, thick with an unspoken threat. My ears popped, a sharp reminder of the oppressive pressure closing in. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat a deafening drum that echoed in the silence, drowning out rational thought. I could hear every tiny sound, the rustle of fabric, the faint creak of the floorboards, the whisper of my own panicked breaths. For the first time in my life, I felt a kind of fear that paralyzed me. Not just mentally, but physically. My limbs were leaden, rooted to the spot by an invisible force. I couldn't breathe, each gasp sticking in my throat as my mind raced frantically between fight and flight. Then, the knob on the closet began to turn. The soft click of metal on metal was a gunshot in the silence, setting my nerves alight. My body screamed for action, every muscle tensing as I prepared to bolt, but the dread held me captive. Behind the door, something shifted, its movements, deliberate and menacing, each creak a sinister promise. The anticipation was suffocating, the air so thick I could almost taste the fear. My heart skipped a beat as the door inched open, revealing a sliver of darkness that seemed to pulse with malevolent intent. The decision was made in a heartbeat, fight or flight. I didn't know which would win. I ran. I slammed my bedroom door shut and shoved my dresser in front of it. I sat with my back against it, heart racing, sweat running down my spine. Silence. Not even footsteps, just nothing. But the moment I closed my eyes, I heard it, right next to my ear. I'm already inside. Everything spiraled into chaos. Flashes of darkness, a cacophony of jumbled sounds, a blur of distorted shadows danced behind my eyelids. I felt a sharp edge of panic clawing at my consciousness. Then, nothing. A void. Silence. When I jolted awake, it was morning. Sunlight creeping timidly through the blinds, casting long, hesitant shadows across the room. The apartment was eerily quiet, its silence both a balm and a threat. The front door was still locked, the bolt a silent guardian. But when I checked the closet, emptiness greeted me, a barren space, dust-covered and untouched, as if reality itself had been scrubbed clean. I questioned my sanity. Had I imagined it all? Was it the cruel trick of sleep-deprived paranoia? My mind, a fractured kaleidoscope of disbelief and fear, sought answers where none seemed to exist. Then I saw my phone. The photo app was open, unbidden. There was a new photo, a chilling snapshot of me, asleep. The image was taken from inside the closet, the angle steep and intrusive, as though peering out from a hidden vantage point. Soft, muted morning light filtered through the slats of the closet door, casting thin, prison bar shadows across. My sleeping form. The timestamp was unmistakable, the early hours of dawn when dreams entwine with reality. In that moment, realization struck with a visceral clarity. My pulse quickened, the truth settling like a stone in the pit of my stomach. The photograph was real. I moved out that same day. Left everything behind. Furniture, clothes, even my laptop. I didn't care. I just packed a bag, called a rideshare, and left without saying a word to the landlord. When I passed him outside, he didn't even ask why. He just looked at me with this tired, hollow look in his eyes, and he said, "You opened the door, didn't you?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. It's been months now. I live across the city in a high-rise, surrounded by noise and neighbors and lights that never go out. But even here, even with concrete and distance and new locks between me and that hallway, sometimes at night, around 2:14 a.m., I hear 3 soft knocks, not on the door this time, on the mirror, on the wall behind my bed, on the inside of my closet. And last week, I woke up to find the closet door wide open. My phone was on the floor, camera app open again. No new photos this time, but the next night my reflection in the mirror blinked a second too late. They say every place holds energy, that walls can remember. But what if something else remembers too? Something that waits for you to break the rules, to answer when you were told not to. This wasn't just about curiosity. It wasn't a ghost. It was something older, smarter, something that wears your skin like a mask and learns by watching. You sleep, so if you ever hear 3 knocks, don't speak, don't move, and above all, do not open the door, because once it gets in, you don't get out.